that we celebrate large life milestones for people. Because big milestones are pretty cool things. So today we are celebrating a big milestone of 90 years of Miss Janelle Simonek.
Let's sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Janelle.
Happy birthday to you. Amen. This is one of those uncomfortable topics that nobody likes to talk about. They say, preacher, you've gone from preaching to meddling. And so we're going to start out with something a little lighthearted. So one day during a worship service, it was in the morning, a pastor was discussing donations and giving and tithing with the congregation. And in the message, he said, if you had $1 million, how many of you would be willing to give 10% to the church? Well, hands went up all over the place. But he looked back, and there was this one man. Didn't raise his hands. Didn't raise a hand at all. That kind of puzzled him. After the service, like most pastors, he's standing out front, guys are going by, and he said, hey, I got a question for you. Why? I noticed you didn't raise your hand. You wouldn't be willing to give 10% of $1 million? He says, there's no greater joy than helping move God and serving God in his work. The man kind of held his head down, and he's like, no, I guess not, Pastor. I guess there's supposed to be a joy. And sir, the problem is I actually have $1 million. Okay, I thought that was funny. Okay, let's move on to something that's a real story, okay? There's a great preacher by the name of Dr. George W. Truett. Now, that name may sound familiar. Dr. George Truett from North Carolina. He is actually the man who is... Kathy Truett was named, or Truett Kathy was named. Y'all know who Truett Kathy is? All right, who works at Chick-fil-A? How many of you worship at Chick-fil-A on Mondays? George Truett was out of North Carolina. He actually lived from 1867 to 1944. Well, he was well known. He was an amazing speaker. He's actually written some great books. He's got great sermons. And so he goes to help this little congregation. Again, true story. He goes to help them because they need money taken up for a church building. So they had this big special service, and the offering was taken. Now, they needed $6,500 for this building. That tells you how long ago it was. They needed $6,500 to build their church building. Well, the problem was he saw how much was pledged, and only $3,000 was pledged. And he was rather irritated, actually quite exasperated. And he said, guys, do you expect me to cover the other $3,500? He's like, I'm a guest here. I don't even live here. And suddenly, back in the back, sweet little old lady stood up. Now, her husband was seated on the platform. He was counting and writing down the pledges. So she stands up at the back, and she looks up, and she said, Charlie, I wonder if we could increase our pledge. We could give our little home. We could actually sell our home and give the money to the church. She said, we were offered $3,500 yesterday for our house. Exactly what we would need. So let's sell our house. She said, why wouldn't we do that? Because of such the sacrifices that God has made for us, why wouldn't we just do that? And Truett's like, wow. And the husband said, you know what, Jenny? I was just thinking the exact same thing. So he turned to Dr. Truett. He said, Brother Truett, if we need it, Jenny and I will increase our pledge by $3,500. Well, you can imagine the sanctuary went quiet. Silence was deafening. People began to cry. Some of them were weeping. And the same people who 15 minutes either refused to make a contribution said, I mean, put my name on there. Some stood up and said, I'll increase mine by this much. And it didn't take very long. And you know what? Jenny and Charlie did not have to sell their house because it increased by $3,500. But it was their willingness to sacrifice that actually stimulated others to step up and give, and some to give more. And that's interesting because this is exactly what Jesus intended when he spoke to the disciples about a little bitty widow. See, the problem with we have in the church today is people, believers, can sit around and argue whether they're going to give to the church by the Old Testament or the New Testament standard. Old Testament was 10%. New Testament was give everything you got. You pick. I'll be happy with either one. But they will sit and try to justify why they can't give while they drive off the parking lot with a fresh new temporary tag. But in one sentence, Jesus goes straight to the heart of the matter. And I believe this is one of the most condensed yet amazing lessons that Jesus would ever teach, especially about giving. Look in your Bibles in Luke chapter 21. It's just 4 verses. Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, 1 through 4. And he, that's Jesus, and he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins. And he said, truly, I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all of them. For they, out of their surplus, put into the offering, but she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on. Now, up to this point, it's already been bad because Jesus has been sitting here in the temple area and he has been bashing the Pharisees. He's rebuking the Pharisees. He's like, y'all are doing this, y'all are doing this, y'all are doing this, y'all are doing this. And he's also using these things to teach the disciples. In fact, what he had just said before in the previous chapter said, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love respectful greetings in the marketplaces and chief seats in the synagogues and places of honor at banquets, who devour widows and for appearance's sake offer long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation. So he's saying this, and then he looks up. Jesus was great about object lessons. He loved pictures. He loved telling stories. He was really good. We're called parables. But he looks up, and this is a real-life object lesson. He looks up, and he sees some of these same Pharisees throwing in money. But then out of the corner of his eye, he sees this little widow come up. You can envision it, can't you? I mean, she's poor. She's got a tattered shawl on. Her head's covered up. She's probably hunched a little bit because she probably had to do some hard labor to make whatever she had. She just walks quietly up there. You know, most people in that temple area would have looked at her and they would have shaken their heads and they were like, really? Look, lady, are you kidding me? That little bitty tiny bit of money you just put in there, you haven't made God happy. What's that little bitty two copper coins? What that's going to do? Just go home. I mean, because look, after all, look at these guys. Man, they're just pouring stuff in there and it's really loud. Because see, they had metal bins, right? And they would make noise. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, you know, when I was a kid, we had offering trays that they didn't have the felt on the bottom, and they were metal. And he said, so when it went by, I just took my thumb and thumped the bottom of it. It jangled the coins, and I passed it. True story. And I was like, wow, dude, you probably should keep that to yourself. But that's what they would do, and there was 13 of these things. So you can imagine, I'm taking a little handful of coins, and I'm going down the line, right? Is that going to get your attention? Everybody steps back and goes, woo! You know what? I bet he can't afford that new chariot now. Jesus, however, takes this brief, I mean, we're talking about a split second in time. One move, nothing said. And he takes that lesson as he watches it play out, and he gives us a timeless lesson. This was not about budgets. It was never about budgets. This was not about having a stewardship committee. No offense, stewardship committee, relax. I like you. This was not about any of that. This wasn't about loans for building campaigns. No, he goes much deeper. He said, those things are symptoms. That's just the aftermath. I want you to understand something more important. They are up there making this show of it, making a lot of noise about it. And yet here is this little woman, poor, silently walking up. She didn't even have enough money to put in 13 of the horns. She didn't have enough to even put into one. He says she gave everything she had to live on. All of us, myself included, hear that and go, I don't know if I can do that. But that wasn't Jesus' point. There's no racket, there's no pomp, there's no circumstance. The only thing you see in this little woman is her heart. Jesus says, that's the point. I mean, look at what she gave. Some translations, your translation may say that she had 2 mites. Anybody's translation say 2 mites, M-I-T-E-S? A mite was better known in that area as a lepta, L-E-P-T-A, lepta. It was a very, very, very minute, low-value coin that was used in ancient Judea. It was the smallest and least valuable of all the coins in circulation at that time. It's hard to pinpoint its exact value, but it was 1/64th of a denarii. Okay, you're like, well, great, what's a denarii? Okay, a denarii, it took 128 of these mites to make 1 denarii. 128. A denarii was an entire day's wage for the laborer. She didn't even give a day's pay. She gave 1/64th of a day's pay. And while they tossed in all these little coins, she's just quiet about these 2, quite frankly, worthless coins. They gave out of theatrics. She gave out of thanks. They gave begrudgingly little from their much. She gave lavishly much from her little. They were self-applauding. She was self-sacrificing. And in that one moment, I mean, think about it. 4 verses in 1 sentence. Jesus goes to the very heart of the matter. And he shows us all. It isn't about the amount of the gift. It's the heart of the giver. It isn't how much cash, but how much care. It's not about self, it's about sacrifice. Now, we know the Bible is imperative. We have an imperative command to give to support the body of Christ and the work of God. And in this, you also see in this teaching, Jesus says, here's how you do this. Here's how you should be giving. He says it's only based on 2 things. That is the spirit in which it was given. A gift that is unwillingly extracted, a gift that is given out of a grudge, a gift that is given for the sake of prestige or self-display loses its value. The only real gift comes from the inevitable outflow of a loving heart. As my grandfather used to tell me over and over again, son, what's in the well comes up in the bucket. Or from a biblical translation, and this is the gospel according to Doug, open your mouth, your heart pops out. You could even go open your wallet and your heart pops out. And that's the point Jesus is making. It's about the Spirit. I mean, in your text, think about it. This little woman, a little poor widow woman, if you didn't know any better, you would have thought she had written the 1975 worship song, "Oh, How He Loves Me, Oh, How He Loves Me." He gave His life. What more could He give? Oh, how He loves me. Oh, how He loves me. Oh, how He loves you and me. You could see it written all over the moment in time. The second thing is about the sacrifice it involves. The gifts of the rich, as they flung their offerings into those brass trumpets, they did not cost them much. But the 2 little coins cost her everything. Now, for us, we're like, okay, well, it's a couple of coins. It's a whole lot. We got to understand something, though. This is a widow. And it's apparent by her appearance and by what he sees and saying she's poor, that she has no husband, no son, no brother. Now, why is that important? Because if you were a woman that day and you had no man in your life, husband, son, brother, uncle, to take care of you, you were a beggar for everything you had. You couldn't get a job, and there was no one to care for you. There was no one to support you. You were on your own. Now, you stop and think about that. That's what this woman is. And she just did that? That makes it so much bigger. You're like, oh, now I get it. See, they calculated how much they could afford. She was reckless. You see, church, tithing, giving, donating, offering to the church is an act of worship. Yes, but it's a statement of love and of trust, of grace and gratitude. And you know the process. You understand what it means. Think about it. Guys, how many of you are married? Okay. So y'all are dating at some point in time, right? I hope. I hope it wasn't an arranged marriage. And you knew. You just loved her so much. Right? You wanted to buy the big old ring. Because you went to the mall. She wanted the ring you felt like she deserved. Do this, guys. Didn't you do that, guys? Didn't you do that, guys? Say, come on, I'm trying to help you out here, guys. But you did. So here is this woman. She's like, this is the God that saved me. And I love Him so much for caring for me, for taking care of me. I don't want to know how little I can give. I want to know how much I can give. He gave His life. What more could I give? And if you don't believe it's true, besides the ring thing, the things that we love, we spend the money on. Watch. Watch a guy with a brand new boat. The boat's not expensive, so to speak. You know what's expensive? It's all the toys that go along with it. All the things. Watch somebody buy a stripped motorcycle. In 2 weeks, it's not stripped anymore. It's got all the saddlebags. It's got the fairing. It's got the anti-vibration shocks on the things, right? Okay, some of y'all don't ride motorcycles. But you watch. Watch a teenager. Watch a 17-year-old with a ratty old truck. They're going to get it lifted. They're going to put a new radio in it. They're going to put new seat covers on it. They're going to polish the rust. They will work extra work, and they will make sure that this rust bucket is so good because, he's got to impress the girls because I got a truck, right? And we got some boys in here. I have watched them do this. They find something on Marketplace. Mom and Daddy help them out. Next thing you know, they're working work. They got jobs, not because they want to pay for the gas and the insurance. They want to get it jacked up. Because they love that truck. Now, I know hunters don't do that in hunting season. Not at all. People will think nothing. I got another example of this. We were in Smith Mountain Lake for a couple of days to visit friends we had not seen for 12 years. We loved them dearly. They were my youth director and his wife, wonderful, godly, mission-focused people. And they decided to retire. They were going to buy a house on the lake. It's always good to have friends that have a house on a lake. And so we get there, and I'm looking down, and there's a big boat, and there's a jet ski. I was like, did that come with the house? He's like, no. Oh, so you bought them from the people that were here before you bought them used? No. We bought the house. We knew we needed to have a boat. And then she wanted a jet ski, so we went and bought them brand new. The expense wasn't the house. The house was all the toys that go with the lake. And they thought nothing of spending that money because they loved their house on the lake. Based on that, you would think American churchgoers love their stuff a lot more than they love their Jesus. Here's something I want to share, another real-life story. Happened to me and Deb. Our son was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And at Fort Bragg, we had gone down because he was fixing to get on a plane and fly to Afghanistan for 12 months into a combat zone. And by the way, his job was what the Army has. It's a designator called 11 Bravo, right? And we call them bullet catchers because they're infantry. They're the ones that go on the front line. So he's boarding this plane. Everybody's all emotional, and we're all doing the hugging thing, and we're hearing conversations from all these soldiers. We're hearing last-minute instructions. Hey, Dad, don't forget to change the oil in my truck. Or we would hear, hey, I forgot to pay my credit card bill. Would you pay that while I'm gone? I'm not going to have mail real easy. Or, Mama, please feed my dog. We were overhearing conversations. But then I heard one soldier say, Daddy, please make sure you mail my tithe check to the church every month. And go ahead and put some extra money in it because I'm not going to be using it anyway. I was dumbfounded. This kid is about to go into battle, and the thing he is worried about the most is making sure that his offering goes to his church. I gotta be honest with you, not only was I dumbfounded, I was humbled. He's about to get on this jet to sacrifice for his country, and all he is concerned about is sacrificing for God. God, blew me away. That's the scene in Luke 12. The poor widow is not operating out of logic. She's not operating out of rationale. She's not operating out of reason. She is acting out of faith. Because again, a true widow couldn't take care of herself. Our gifts show our love, our faith. When we've had to do something or have to work doubly hard in order to get it, or in order to give it. So God says, listen, you are to give this in grace. I mean, Paul even equates it in 2 Corinthians chapter 8. He equates the church's giving to the grace of God. He tells a very wealthy church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, 1 through 10. You can read that when you get home. He tells a very wealthy church in Corinth about a little bitty, struggling, broke, poverty-stricken church in Macedonia, way north. It's a little bit, I know you guys don't understand this. It was a little country church. And he says, you know what? They heard about the Christians in Jerusalem. He heard about them. And he heard they were struggling. They heard they couldn't get jobs. They heard this, they heard that. They knew they were having a hard time because they were believers of Jesus and they weren't able to get jobs. They were losing things. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, they literally begged me to take up an offering. They gave more than they had, and somehow they gave more than they had. He's like, I don't know how they did it. I guess it's the whole fishes and loaves things. He said, but they gave not out of their abundance, they gave in their poverty, and they gave more. And he said, they wouldn't let us leave until we took the money. And this is for a church, another church, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. I'm like, how can our brothers and sisters need this? And we have, and let's just give it to them. There is no way you or I could have bought our way into heaven. And so Jesus paid the price. So it is that grace that penned the words of the hymn, were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love so amazing, love so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. When we remember the grace that was paid for us, we will then begin to give out of gratitude. You know, we read this earlier. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. I mean, think about it. How many of you like country music? Okay. And the rest of you need to get cultured. But you'll understand this. In a lot of country love songs, in fact, in a lot of love songs, period, right? The guy will sing about how much he loves this girl, right? And what he would give her, right? Even back in the day, ain't no mountain high enough. Some of y'all remember that, you know? Okay. We hear songs about how a guy loves the girl so much, he's going to give her the moon, he's going to climb the mountains, he's going to swim the sea, all because this girl loves him. Think Randy Travis. I'll give you a second. The song is all about this expression of how much love, how much gratitude, and how much outward expression because you love me and I know I don't deserve your love. I'm just a dumb boy. You're this gorgeous woman. I don't deserve that love, but for whatever reason you gave it to me. I don't want to lose it. And I will do whatever I have to. By the way, you don't lose the love of God. I want to make sure you know, I'm not, don't hear me say that, okay? Don't hear me say that, oh, if I give more, God's going to love me more. No. He's not counting your pennies. He's counting your heart. He's counting your love. He's counting your joy. So we give out of gratitude, and we're supposed to give with generosity. Again, back in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, Paul said, for I testify that according to their ability and beyond their ability, they gave of their own accord. They didn't wait to be urged. They weren't pressed in it. They weren't begged for it. It was just the opposite. They begged to give it. They gave beyond their ability. They weren't asked. They just heard, oh, there's a need. Okay. They were not like Henry Ford. You know what this happened one time? Henry Ford was asked to donate for the construction of a new hospital. He was a billionaire at the time, and he pledged $5,000. Which, by the way, in today's standard, a billionaire can accumulate $5,000 in a matter of seconds. So anyway, Henry Ford, in the paper the next day, this was brilliant. In the paper the next day, it read, Henry Ford contributes $50,000 to the local hospital. You know what he did? He picked up the phone. He was mad. He was very irate. He called him on the phone immediately to complain, I did not do that. So the paper said, okay, relax. We'll run a retraction in the paper tomorrow that says Henry Ford reduces his generosity by $45,000. He realized that is not good PR. And so he agreed, fine, I'll give the $50,000. That's not giving that's not giving cheerfully. That's giving it grudgingly. He certainly didn't do it on his own accord. You know what would happen to our treasurer and our stewardship committee if the church actually started begging to take up 2 offerings? Pastor, I know we do an offering at the beginning. Can we do one at the end too? Where's my treasurer, right? He's just back there smiling. He's like, make my life so much easier. You gotta be impressed with our treasurer and our really amazing stewardship committee. They're so good at doing what they're doing. They're like the little lady who went to a carnival, and she gets to the carnival, and the strong man takes a lemon and he squeezes it really hard till it's dry. And he said, I'll give $200 to anybody that can squeeze one more drop out of that lemon. This little old lady comes walking up to the platform, frail-looking little lady. She said, give it to me. He hands her the lemon. She squeezes, and out comes 2 drops of lemon juice. He's like, here's your $200, but how in the world did you do that? She said, I'm a church treasurer. Raise your hand, Scott. Say amen. Listen, kids understand this. Where are all my VBS kids that we have in here? VBS workers, VBS kids? Yeah. Y'all know this. You witnessed it. VBS was awesome. Every one of those workers did an amazing job. The kids were awesome. But those kids blew us away with their generosity. I would sit in the back during the opening. I saw 2 or 3 kids every day get really upset that they had left their money in a plastic bag on the kitchen table. They're telling Mama, you got to go home and get my money. Mom's like, we'll bring it tomorrow. No. Honey, I'm not going home. I'll get you tomorrow. They were upset. These kids actually jockeyed to figure out who was going to get to take the offering up. Am I right, workers? Kristen, remind me how much the amount we were trying to get for the kids to raise food? 400. How much did they bring in? Over 1,000. They gave according to their ability and beyond their ability. And by the way, thank you, Mom and Dad. But I know what happened because they were getting ready and they wanted to come to VBS and they were needling you until you gave them something to give. But you know what's interesting? Some of them actually gave out of what they had. They had a piggy bank. They opened a piggy bank up. Some of them did little extra chores around the house so they could earn the money, and they actually gave all the money they earned for that chore. Kids get it. But after all, hey, what do kids know, right? I'm not going to give you any steps today. I'm not going to dive into the fact that we're commanded to give, though we are. I'm not going to tell you that we have to pay bills, go on mission trips, and all the things, though we do. I'm not going to talk to you that about only 5% of churchgoers actually give, though that's a fact. I said 5%, not 50. I'm not going to tell you that out of 247 million U.S. citizens identifying as Christians, only 1.5 million of them tithe, though that is a fact. I'm not going to go into that women make up to 75% of the givers in the church. Women. All of those are just facts. But that's not the point of today's scripture. It's bigger than facts. The heart of the problem is the heart. It's not about the dollar sign. It's not about what you give or don't give. It's not a matter of do you give this much money or do you just barely have to give. It's about the heart. Just a few questions. No application points, just a few questions. And be honest. You don't have to answer me. Answer you're in your own head. Do I give out of love and grace? Do I just give out of my monetary abundance, or do I give out of the abundance of my heart? Do I really sacrifice? Do I give with a grudge, or do I give with a gratitude? One line, one sentence. Jesus tells us how we are to give. That's what impressed him. That's what moved him. And it was the heart. You have to give as you see fit. You don't answer to me. You're not giving to me. You're not giving to the stewardship committee. You're not giving to the treasurer. When you put that in there, this is an act of worship that you are giving to God. You and him work it out. Would you stand with me?